Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gonzo Ewok channel with me Ewok.
And me Gonzo.
And today we're going to do a podcast, but we're going to do a very special podcast.
Yeah, a bit different from the previous ones that we've done here.
Mainly because I've been fed up of having to sort of manage all the images on the podcast, so we've decided that for each podcast we're going to be gaming and we want something relaxing and chill.
Yeah, the logic being, as you said, it caused a huge amount of heartache for you on that one particular podcast where we talked about 30 games.
Yeah,
just
and I worked out the points to insert source all the images, which was pain. And so we've decided that we're going to be playing some Euro Truck Simulator.
Yes,
where we're doing a podcast.
You're driving, I'm your driver's mate. You'll see in the top right, Bad Santa is the driver for Go Truck Yourself Trucking. I nearly swore there.
Go Truck Yourself. Based in Newcastle, of course.
Yes, and we did debate whereabouts to base ourselves, and we thought if we put anything else but Newcastle, you people would have complained.
Oh, there's lots of Christmas presents next to the...
You not noticed that? That's been spinning around for 5 minutes while we're set up. There's a massive frigging Christmas tree there.
I didn't notice that. So maybe these like Mad Santa was added on the Christmas one?
Clearly, yeah. I kind of put two and two together. You'll notice as well, ladies and gents, that our first job for today is going to be to take some sausages from Newcastle to Newcastle with an expected delivery time of 5 hours.
So, yeah. I'm going to start driving.
If you live in Newcastle, you'll probably also be aware that that's not actually too exaggerated to say it would take 5 hours to get anywhere because, well, one, we're underwater at present, at time of recording, early January. And also, all the roadworks as well, which are the bane of everybody's life. Now,
this truck is blooming nitty.
Yeah, sort of. I'm trying to think of the word weaving, snake tail, and fishboning. What do you call them?
Look, we're not here to talk about Euro Truck Simulator.
No, but I'm getting me started just while we're doing a little bit of driving. You just crashed already.
Your steering wheel, I mean, the steering wheel turns like incredibly fast on this. It doesn't do that on my game.
Yeah, it doesn't on mine usually either. Do you map your indicators?
Yes, I do. Right, I'll tell you what. Let's chat, and I'll mess around with the settings. So we've just had a Steam sale.
We have indeed. First order of business.
I suppose we'll talk about what we bought in the Steam sale. However, let's talk about the Steam sale itself because it was quite different from the norm, wasn't it?
It was very different, yeah. If you remember previous Steam sales, if you've ever been a part of them, and at this point I assume you've been a part of at least one or two of them.
You would hope so.
You would usually see things like, you would see flash sales. Generally it tended to be like a small selection of games would come up for sale with a big discount, and then you would have flash sales which would change, was it every 8 hours or so? With big discounts, and
I think it was every 8 hours because it would change 3 times a day.
This year, though, it's been quite different. This year, what we've seen is that basically everything went on sale and stayed on sale for the duration, which I think was it Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas Eve up until January.
I think it was a couple of days before Christmas, but I mean, it took me by surprise because I was sitting there waiting. Some deals come on, 50% off this. I had my eye on that, and I was waiting. Like, it might come up with a flash sale.
Yeah.
Oh, it might have a bigger discount tomorrow. It actually took me a few days to realise that the discounts weren't changing daily.
Yeah, it raises a good point as well because, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think Steam pre-announced. They don't pre-announce sales anyway, but you know they're going to have one over Christmas. But they didn't actually say it's going to be a different format or don't hold out for your flash sales. We're not doing them this year. Which is interesting, and of course I think this idea of maybe a lack of communication from Steam plays into something that happened a bit later on during the Steam sale, which I'd like to talk about as a bit of a point, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Begin with, what games did you pick up in the Steam sale?
I picked up a game called Age of Wonders 3, which is it's a 4X game, Fantasy 4X. I've had my eye on it for a long time. But
it's a little bit like Endless Legend. I've just recently picked up Endless
It's
Legend.
comparable to Endless Legend.
Similar
in fact, when I bought Endless Legend, I was toying between the two. Now, Endless Legend is tighter on its sort of campaign map level controls, whereas the other one, Age of Wonders, the one that I just bought, never mind that car. Age of Wonders is... Okay, that's far too insensitive. Age of Wonders is more about the tactical combat that happens.
Yeah, I quite like that. It reminds us, did you ever play a game back on... I played it on the Mega Drive. or Genesis if you're American and by some miracle listen to this. A game called King's Bounty.
Yeah, which again is very similar to the Might and Magic series.
Yeah.
It's comparable to that.
That idea, yeah, on that kind of main map, when a battle happens, all the units that are marching around as an army kind of expand over this very small kind of map, and then it becomes sort of like grid-based as you sort of march around and fire or use magic or sort of engage in combat with each other. It's a good game. I've had it for a while. I haven't reinstalled it on my computer since my hard drive died back in early December. I've maybe put a dozen hours into it or so, but quite good fun. Don't mind it. What are you doing?
I'm just messing with the controller because I can't remember what they are.
You have just set them up seconds before we started recording.
And I've totally fucked the steering up. I thought this was going to be a relaxing game to play while we podcasted, but because the controls didn't set up as intuitively as it did on me, and I'm driving across the fucking pavement.
They weren't kidding when they said these sausages will take 5 hours, did they? Like, Jesus.
That's never going round the corner. We've delivered. Right. Let's sack that off for a little bit.
Right. Are you done? That lasted enough to get 5 minutes into the podcast.
We're gonna pause it, sort the controls out.
No, we're not.
All right, you're gonna try it.
Hit enter. It'll be fine.
Trust me, the controls are foobarred.
Well, we shall see. If I can make the truck move, I'll be happy enough with that. Just hit drive. I'll just drive somewhere.
You'll just drive somewhere.
Aye.
You don't have a truck.
Oh, for God's sake.
So I'll get you a job. You're going from Newcastle to Sheffield, yeah?
Alright. Tell me a little bit more about...
Age of Wonders.
Age of Wonders.
Really enjoying it. The reason I kind of held off on it is because it's retained its value for a long time. I think it's been out over a year now. But it's retained its value because it's been regularly releasing DLC.
Right.
And really good DLC. So it got to the point where you were talking like sort of 25 quid for the base game, tenner each for each of the DLCs. You see, it's totally fucked.
It is totally fucked. Carry on now.
Tenner each for each.
Once I'm on the motorway, it'll be fine. Motorways are basically straight.
Tenner each for each of the DLCs. So I managed to pick it up. I think I got like 75% off. I paid 15 quid for the whole shebang.
Right.
And yeah, I've been thoroughly enjoying it. I bought it in the Steam Christmas sales. I only got around to playing it maybe a week ago. And I'm 23 hours into it. I've nearly put the full day in.
That's pretty good.
Just playing the campaign, but the campaign's really interesting. One of the things I like about it is that it doesn't kind of stick to fantasy tropes.
Yeah.
You've got two elements as to what sort of units you get in your army. You've got your army itself and their race.
Uh-huh.
So, like, elves will get archers, and humans will get cavalry. Orcs will get like big berserkers with big swords and stuff like that. But you also pick a character, and your character has a character class. So you could be a necromancer. That's one of the ones that the updates brought in, or you could be a druid or a sorcerer, and that affects the kind of units you get as well.
That was the huge selling point for me, actually, the amount of replayability that mixing between races and classes can offer.
So you can end up with like real weird combinations. Like you might have the orcs down as like customary, violent and crazy, but you could have say like a religious leader. You could have like a cleric teamed up with an orc army, and you could be churning out orc crusaders and orc missionaries and stuff like that. So it does just lend itself really to some like really, really interesting,
sort of very open-ended sort of 4X
some interesting
gameplay.
Combinations. Yeah. And well, I've been enjoying it from that regard. I've been playing it mostly with the campaign, the first campaign that you get. There's 4 campaigns in total if you get all the DLC. So you started off with an elf rogue in that one, and then I did a mission as a draconian archdruid, and now I'm a goblin priest, which I think is quite interesting.
That's a good.
So going around converting all the surrounding goblin villages and fighting against some dwarves at the moment.
We never have any kind of junctions looking even vaguely like that in Newcastle, and I dare say in all of Britain. And you want to try driving one with a fucked steering wheel. I used to drive a Rover and I crashed it into a curb. And it was basically like the end of the Memphis Belle. Every time you wanted to drive it, like it was just totally jiggered. You had to hold the steering wheel at a 45-degree angle, otherwise the car just spun out of control crazily.
It's good to know that
it's like driving this.
It's good to know that you've been paying attention. But you're right. we'll put this game on because I like to play this game and just chill, and it's so relaxing. But when the controls are even slightly out, it ceases to be relaxing.
Well,
when you're driving a tank.
To be fair, I have been listening to you about Age of Wonders, and I do agree it's a good little game. I do enjoy it, and I think it's well worth picking up if you haven't tried it before. It's well worth a shout. I think
I'll
probably
tell you one thing it's got going for it that could be interesting. It's got local co-op.
I mean, we did mention that when we were having a drink on New Year's Eve.
Yep, it's got local campaign co-op.
Aye. So if you've ever played it before, let me know what you think. What do you reckon of Age of Wonders? Do you think it compares to some of the other big 4Xs that are out there? Mm-hmm. Any of the other sort of Endless series, I suppose, if you're into those. And the other thing, if you would like to see us play a campaign of it, maybe try a little bit of co-op. One of those things that we're still looking for something to fill the void for KSP. We've started with Prison Architect. We've started doing a new podcast as well today, but it'd be interesting to hear any other kind of games that you'd like to see we'll cover. As far as I know, I can't think of any YouTubers that I've watched that have played a lot of Endless. Not Endless Legend, Age of Wonders.
Age of Wonders.
But yeah, I'd be up for seeing if anybody has. If you watch anybody that plays it, let me know, because I'm out of practice with the game and I probably could do a little bit.
So what about yourself? What have you been playing?
Right.
Did you pick anything up in the Steam sales?
I picked up quite a bit in the Steam sales.
Really?
To the point where I had to write them down, but of course now I'm busy driving a truck.
You're in a 50 zone as well.
So, things that I've picked up, you bear with us just while I'm trying to drive here and reach for me a bit of paper. Like a proper trucker, I'm busy reading the newspaper and driving the truck.
Have you written the games that you picked up down?
Yeah, because there was quite a few of them.
If you're gonna be reading, I'll take the wheel.
Right, Ewok is now in control. He's now put his left indicator on and hit the centre reservation. While you're busy sorting that one out, I'll run through. Okay, first thing that I picked up. Well, actually, no, these aren't in any particular order. But I'll start with all the games that I wanted to pick up.
You've got a huge list there.
Yeah. There's quite a few bits on here. So, first thing that I picked up was Dawn of War and the expansions.
Oh, fantastic.
I had those on disc back in the day. Not any of the expansions.
The original one or Dawn of War 2 here?
Dawn of War 1.
Right.
Dawn of War 2 I've got and I've played a lot with all the expansions and I've played them all a lot. Dawn of War I played the original back in the day quite a bit off disc, but I never got the expansions. And at the minute I've got a right sort of like Warhammer 40,000 fanboy thing going on. And I was like, you know what, they came up and I think I could get everything together for about £7. And I was like, you know what, that's not bad. That's usually about 30 quid's worth of stuff, maybe a bit more. For £7 it would be worth just having them, so I didn't have to worry about where the hell have I put the old Dawn of War disc. And I thought, yeah, I'll pick them up. And sure enough, I picked them up. All the new races that the DLC added, I've played through the tutorial just to see how they work differently. It was actually play very, very different.
Added the Imperial Guard to it, didn't it?
That was the first expansion, yeah. The Imperial Guard got added, and again, that changes around. It adds like a morale sort of mechanic to it. So not only do you physically do damage to units, you can also like damage the morale, and that adds a nice sort of like little bit of flavour to it. So you've got commissars who help to boost people's morale, and you can execute one of your soldiers to boost the morale if they're breaking. So that was pretty cool. But also, I think you get in the original game you had Orcs, Eldar, Space Marines, and Chaos, and then you got let's have a think here. You got the Imperial Guard. You got Dark. You don't have Tyranids, I don't think. I think that's the only race that didn't come to the original Dawn of War. But you get Imperial Guards, you get Dark Eldar, you get Tau, you get the Necrons, you get the Sisters of Battle.
I mean, that's like almost as much. In fact, it's more content than was in the base game, isn't it? In terms of the amount of races.
It does add a lot to it, and the nice thing is as well, a lot of them play slightly different, and each DLC brought different mechanics to it. And then retrofitted, say, the Space Marines, you suddenly started being able to get your hands on flyers if you had one of the DLCs.
Did it also
some of the
add
extra hero units?
Like a sort of sandbox campaign kind of mode as well? Or was that? Am I thinking of Dawn of War 2?
Dawn of War 2 had like a Last Stand mode that one of the DLCs added, which was something like mainly you would play online, which was a bit more like Dawn of War the original. But yeah, Dawn of War, the first one's very much it's RTS, and I mean it's one of those games that I think a lot of people, if they've got any vague interest in Warhammer and play computer games, have probably played at some point. But worth pointing out that I picked it up in a similar kind of vein. I also picked up Oblivion, because I had Oblivion and the two expansions bought separately that I used to play back in the day on my PC. The last time I played Oblivion was actually with a copy on the Xbox 360 that you gave us because you had a bunch of them kicking around.
Yeah, I ended up with quite a few copies of Oblivion.
Yeah, so you gave me one of your old copies. So the last time I had a big playthrough of it, I picked it up, and it came up in the Steam sale. Game of the Year edition, I think, was about a £5. And picked that up just so I don't have to worry about where my disc is. I know I've got it all now.
Funnily enough, I
got
did exactly the
licenses.
same with Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. I've got that on disc,
Aye.
and I've seen it on Steam, and it's been traditionally a little bit pricey for the age of it. But it came on sale, and I thought, you know what, I don't have to worry about the disc. It'll be on my Steam library, and just download it whenever I want. And I downloaded that. I've been playing that as well as
Morrowind's an interesting one because it's held its value quite well. And it's still got quite a big following.
It's still got a huge following, and I think it's an excellent game. It's definitely aged. I don't think it's. It's
not a looker anymore.
It's not a looker anymore, and some of the mechanics are a little rusty, a little dated. The combat certainly is very, very basic.
If you've played Oblivion or Skyrim, but you haven't played Morrowind, in Oblivion and Skyrim there's still the skill to it really, in that you've got to be able to physically swing your weapon and hit them or cast a spell.
There's the feel of it as well. It just feels weighty.
Whereas in Morrowind you just run up to them and attack them, and it's more based off kind of pen and paper RPG mechanics and your stats on whether you hit them and the damage. Yeah.
Like in Oblivion, you'll always hit them. Your skill dictates how much damage you do. In Morrowind, you could be swinging and missing, even though you're clearly connecting. You can't manually block. Your guy will occasionally block, depending on how high your block skill is. So it is very, very bare bones. Definitely the numbers behind it rather than the gameplay element.
Yeah, I think that's a welcome change that came in for me personally with Oblivion and with Skyrim.
The map is a lot smaller than I remember on Morrowind, I have to say. I remember the map seemed like big to me, but you can march across it in no time.
Aye. But I mean, that's the thing. It was very big when the game came out.
It's still great though. It's still a great game, and I am enjoying it. But I can't say that I'm one of the people who say it was the highlight, or it is the highlight. Maybe it was the highlight at its time, and maybe the other games haven't had the same sort of initial appeal. But if you hold it up as a product against Oblivion, against Skyrim, you know, I still think they're probably objectively better games.
Aye. I'd be inclined to agree. That being said, Morrowind, I didn't really play it that much when it first came out, because it came out when I was at university and I didn't have a gaming machine, I didn't have a console.
Oh, well, I had an Xbox at the time. It came out on the original Xbox. So I didn't have a decent PC at the time.
I was using a laptop that I had purely to do university work on, and the only things that I could really play was emulated games. I spent 3 years playing Genesis games or Mega Drive games on an emulator, because that's all I had, and even that would make my laptop at the time overheat and shut down. But that's what I had. I think later on, maybe late into my second year and third year, I think I had a PS2 that I did have at home and I took with us down to uni. But for first year and most of the second year, I didn't have anything to play games on apart from my laptop at the time.
I was much the same. I had a potato of a laptop running Windows Millennium at one point. My God.
I think mine was an old 98 one.
I ran emulators and I ran freeware games from the old website Home of the Underdogs.
Yeah, I used to download bits. I download bits off their Blood Bowl. The old original Blood Bowl, downloaded that, played that. I think I got that after I'd been to visit you when you were at university and you were playing it, and I'd seen it and thought, oh, that's quite good fun.
I also had Brain Surgeon on there. Do you remember Brain Surgeon?
Yeah, Brain Surgeon was mint.
It was awesome because the Windows Millennium was incompatible with my laptop sound card, so I had no sound.
And the game relied, if you wanted to drill into somebody's head.
When you're drilling into somebody's head, you have to drill until it makes the right sound.
Now, this is going to be a bit of a tricky term for you. I'll just point that out. Yeah. Actually, we're getting sidetracked. The other...
that happens,
other kind of quick and dirty games that I kind of picked up. I picked up Call of Cthulhu Dark Chapters of the Earth. Mainly just because it's one that I always meant to get round to playing and never did. And that came up for about £2. And I thought, you know what, £2. Yeah, I'll buy that.
It's not a bad game.
You know what?
The intro is better than the rest of it.
Well,
Strong start.
I put about an hour into it, and I was really enjoying that kind of opening scene. Thought the voice acting's terrible. It looks janky as fuck, but it's setting the scene very, very well. You know, this kind of, you're doing a bit of exploration, bit of a cult going on. If you know anything about sort of like sort of H.P. Lovecraft, and I'm not a like a connoisseur, I'm not an expert, but I know enough to kind of get by when it comes to Lovecraft, and I was picking up on little bits and pieces and thinking, this is referencing bits that I recognise from some of the short stories that I read. However, the game then crashed, and then it crashed, and then it crashed, and then it crashed. It doesn't like modern systems in the slightest, and it would have been nice if there was a bit of a warning up to say it doesn't work very well.
I mean, Fallout 3 has that. Fallout 3 warns that it doesn't work very well on pre-Windows 7.
Well, this is what I was thinking.
Post-Windows 7.
It seems as though actually, and I did check, there was a lot of threads in the sort of on the Steam forums saying it doesn't work particularly well. But yeah, for some reason, it just keeps crashing. And apparently, there is like it's a bit of a dodgy one.
So like
if
an
you
unofficial fan patch kind of thing.
But it only works off the CD version rather than the Steam version. So you've got to download like a no CD crack. To get past DRM on the game files, and then it'll work. But that just seems like you're asking for trouble to do that with a game that's being booted up through Steam. That's like a VAC ban waiting to happen, or some sort of ban waiting to happen for piracy, even though it's a game that legitimately you've bought and you're using a crack purely to actually get the game working, because it doesn't. But that being said, the first hour that I played looked very well. Other one that I picked up was The Testament to Sherlock Holmes. Because I played last year Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishments, which is like an episodic. You do 6 cases, and it's a very, very good game, doing sort of logical deduction. Testament to Sherlock Holmes is an earlier version, which is similar, but it's a bit more point and clicky, and it's good, and it scratches the same sort of itch, but it's not quite as good as Crimes and Punishments is, not quite as polished, a bit kind of obtuse in places, like doesn't really give you much of a clue of what you're actually trying to do half the time.
See, I'd seen Sherlock Holmes and I just assumed, without even looking into it in any detail, that it was going to be, a cheap shovelware point and click adventure game.
Where am I going here?
Yeah, it's a bit of a maze, isn't it?
I mean, they've blocked off there.
Go through.
Right.
Do you want me to zoom in a bit on your advisor?
Yeah, I mean, that probably wouldn't do any harm.
No, it didn't do any help either.
No. So, what else did I get? So, I picked up Her Story.
Fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I blitzed through that in a few hours. I'm saying blitzed through it. I know there was still like a lot in the game that I still needed. But yeah, really, really enjoyed what I played of it. Really, really good. I think I hit upon like a major sort of plot point in the story by accident while searching for something totally
That's the thing.
different. It's all like made up of video
in theory,
clips.
you can accidentally solve the whole thing. In case anybody doesn't know what it is, do you want to explain exactly how the game works?
Yeah, so Her Story basically puts you in the position of having a very old computer, sort of like a sort of Windows 3.1 style PC in front of you, and you're given access to a police database of interview footage, all live action, of a lady being interviewed with regards to a missing persons report, and you have to pick up on details that are mentioned in these reports and then use these to find appropriate search terms to then find more videos to get to the bottom of what's happened.
And they're all fragments of videos. They're like 10 to 20 seconds long at the most.
Yeah, for the most part they are. Can you see
An exit, no?
I mean, what's going on here? They've put one in a pit?
No, I can't see an exit. But yeah, so it's a lot better than it sounds, is all I can say about Her Story. It's a really good story, really well told. And you get kind of engrossed in like writing little details down.
Yeah, I had like 3 or 4 pages of A4 filled with notes.
So, I mean, anything that she says could come up in another video.
Yeah, she might mention a person, or she mentions a pub, or anything really, and then you might go and search for that and find out a little bit more. Now, Ewoks assuring us across to the left here might be the way out.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
I'm almost positive.
It's going to be a bitch to do a 3-pointer in a truck in here.
It's a really good game, and I would definitely recommend it. But it's not something we can talk about without spoiling it, really, because it's real heavy plot driven.
Yeah. It's one of those things, you know what, even at full price...
It's the first full motion video game that's been any good that I've played in years.
The thing is, even if you haven't picked it up, or you're a bit sceptical, I was sceptical and I picked it up for, I think it was on for about £3. I think full price it's only a £5. Give it a go, you'll get a couple of hours out of it, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, a while away in an afternoon.
Well worth checking out, yeah. Really, really enjoyed it. Good little game. Next one that I picked up, I know it's one that you've played quite a bit, was Dying Light.
No, I haven't played any.
Have you not played Dying Light? Oh, no. I thought you had Dying Light and recommended it.
No, that wasn't me.
Shit, I must have been drunk.
Oh, hang on, no, that's a zombie one. Yeah, I did, that was excellent.
Yeah,
I was playing that game when I was learning to drive, and so was my driving instructor. So we'd just cruise around all day talking about Dying Light. So this takes me back, what we're doing right now.
Yeah, to be honest...
Didn't enjoy the Dead Island series.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't like Dead Island. I found it didn't control great. It felt a little bit kind of...
And in case anyone's really confused by the reference, it's the same people who made Dead Island.
It's basically what you're playing.
Aesthetically, it looks quite similar.
It's like Dead Island, Dead Island with parkour. You see, I disagree on that one. I think it plays just like Dead Island. I don't really like it.
I think it does...
It's much smoother, but it's still not great.
I think it does for a little bit. I think for a little bit it plays like that. It plays a bit, again, back in Morrowind, it plays a bit like you're playing the numbers rather than the game.
A little bit.
Because at first you're really quite weak and it takes ages to kill a zombie and you drive on the wrong side of the road, you fucking psychopath.
It's alright, he stopped.
But I think once you've unlocked a few skills, once you've gone up a few levels, it becomes much more of a skill-based game than a bashy number-based game.
Now, I mean, I've only got maybe about 5 or 6 hours into it, but you know what? It's not doing it for us. It's Dead Island with parkour, as far as I'm concerned. It controls a bit smoother, but you know what? The thing, and I knew this getting into it, and I wish I'd paid attention to my instincts. Games where it's done kind of seriously, but I can get a pocket lighter and I can get a flick knife and make a flame weapon. I can't get away with that unless it's Dead Rising or unless you're playing like Fallout. Like, that ain't gonna work for us. It's just, it's not doing it for us really.
Well, fair enough. We've got a mixed report there because it's a definite recommendation from me. And it's a do not recommend from Gonzo.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like it, but it's not for me. Next one, actually, which was a bit of a sleeper for me, and this might divide opinion amongst some.
Yeah, it's fine. I didn't buy any of their games. It's fine.
Mad Max, I picked up as well.
I loved Mad Max.
I really like it. The controls let it down a little bit, but in terms of a game, it looks beautiful, and it's a really good little game.
You see, I really enjoyed it, and I know other people who really enjoyed it, but it got absolutely slated by the critics, by the popular press.
Aye, and I mean, it doesn't have a particularly good Metascore rating either. I mean, generally games tend to have an amazing one or a shitty one. It doesn't have a great one.
Well, to me, it was just like so fun driving around, upgrading the car.
Yeah, I find Max's controls when he's on foot are a bit annoying. Just in terms of physically walking around, the combat controls are fine. The car combat is really good fun though. Upgrading your car and just dunching into people, harpooning them and shit is really good.
One of the weirdest complaints about it, I thought, was like, it's just the combat's really boring. They've just ripped off the Assassin's Creed combat and the Batman combat. Fucking the Batman combat and the Assassin's Creed combat, it does the job, it's quite good.
See, now, I, to some extent I disagree. I think it's very much like, it's similar in that it's timing based. The big difference for me is that if I try and punch somebody and I'm not facing them, in Mad Max, I punch mid-air and somebody smacks us over the back of the head with a bat. Whereas in Assassin's Creed, you hit X.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about your control stick.
You don't have to lock on anybody. You just literally just hit X and you're stabbing them.
I think it more meant in the fact that it's all about sort of
the timing and different kinds of enemies and certain attacks need certain things. Yeah, it borrows heavily from them, but I think Mad Max at least doesn't hold your hand quite as much, which I think is why a lot of people are probably pissed off with it, because people like the hands held. Whereas me, I don't really. I like games that actually make us work for it a bit.
It's the best car combat I've seen in a game in a long time. Just the satisfaction of ramming things and hitting them with your harpoon.
Driving around the desert, discovering stuff, that open world, like...
You can
another
fast
game.
travel in the game, and I maybe did that like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
'Cause I just love driving from A to B.
I've done it once, but yeah, it's that idea of driving around, finding a camp, and then going and like demolishing that camp, or just sort of wrecking it. And yeah, it feels really good. Really enjoyed it. Last one that I picked up, which I've only just started playing, but I'm liking it so far, is Divinity: Original Sin.
Right. Now,
I've had my eyes on it for quite some time. It had a decent discount, so I decided to pick that up. And so far, really, really enjoying it. Mind, I did really like Pillars of Eternity as well. I know that's very popular. I know that's got expansions coming up as well, as a second expansion or sort of mission pack is due fairly shortly. But really, really good. Mechanics in combat again are a little bit off. It's kind of like it's turn based. But sometimes you're not 100% sure of what you're clicking on or what's going to happen when you click on something, which kind of throws us off. But it allows things to be very much open. Like for instance, you might be in the rain and it'll come up and say things are getting wet. There might be puddles, and if you've got a mage who uses electricity or uses fire magic, like that'll have an effect. And it's not just a case of saying, oh yeah, because it's raining, the electricity magic works better. It's like you're looking for somebody that's been out in the rain and it is wet, and you can physically see that and respond to that. Or if maybe you've got maybe not so much like an exploding barrel, but there might be some oil, and you could go and use that, and then people get oiled up, and then you might use fire magic on it.
I just like the idea of people getting oiled up.
Well, you would, wouldn't you, pervert? But I'm probably not doing it justice because I'm busy trying to drive down the M1 here.
In the middle
you know
lane.
What?
Just cruising down the middle lane
I'm a
of the
trucker. I
M1.
don't give a fuck. This is go truck yourself trucking. But yeah, it's really, really good. Really, really enjoyed it. It looks to be absolutely massive so far. Absolutely huge, the game itself. That much. Really good voice acting. Really good sort of in-depth quests going on. And plenty of stuff to get stuck into. And none of it feels like shoehorned into a game in terms of here's a side quest.
It all feels like well-crafted content.
Yeah, it feels like its own kind of little living kind of world, and that's just from jumping into kind of like the first place that you go, following the sort of setup of the story. Really, really enjoying it though. So I'll definitely be putting a lot more hours into that, I think, at some point.
Well, you've got a big list there. I only had those 2 games. I did pick one thing up just before Christmas. Oh no, I did get in the Christmas sale, but didn't have a huge discount on it. It was, I think it was only 15% off or something. But I bought Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time.
All right, aye. Now, I've never played it, but I've seen it played.
Me and the missus always like to have a co-op game on Christmas Day,
Right.
so that was the co-op game I bought for Christmas Day. Ironically, we ended up playing Broforce instead.
The most American Christmas in the world.
But it's still a really good game. We have had a few games on it. It's maybe one we could have a look at.
I love the idea of it. It's on my wish list, and it did come up on sale for about £6 or £7.
Yeah.
And I didn't pick it up, and I kind of wish I had.
Well, it's got a local co-op, so you can come over and have a go at my house. But the general concept of it is you're trying to rescue some trapped kitty things. There was a big attack, and you're flying this experimental spaceship. And this spaceship, you've got your screen right down button on D-pad. So yeah, you've got this experimental spaceship, and there's 2 members of crew. It's either you and an AI or 2 players.
I did that on purpose.
And you've got to control the ship. But the twist is that there's an engine room, a shield room, and 4 weapons rooms, and a special weapon room.
Right.
And you need to be in the room to work it. So you're constantly jumping out of your seat and into the other seat. So you might be flying along and some enemies attack. So one of you has to jump into a gun, one of you has to jump into the shield, and then things start going south, so you have to go away, and blah 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 blah. And it's quite good because it involves a lot of sort of shouting at each other, because you have to make
What a dick!
Because you have to make it very clear what you're doing, so the other person knows what you're doing. Like when we first started playing, me and the missus, because we did have a go on it at the end, would constantly, someone would attack, would like both run for the shield, and then would just be a sitting duck with no weapons and stuff like that. So yeah, really good fun.
Look at him! Look at him!
Well, maybe if you went hogging the middle lane.
Can I just park behind him and put me full beamers on? Fuck him.
So I haven't tried it with the AI, but I feel like it's a game that... What the fuck are you doing? You're gonna drive truck yourself into bankruptcy.
I'm following this guy. I'm going to pull him over and I'm going to rape him.
It's a recommended buy for co-op. I don't know how I'd feel about it being with the AI. Even if the AI is good, I feel like it would lose some of its charm.
Right. Okay then. It's not one that's really been on my radar really. But then again, aside from yourself, I very rarely play like co-op games, and it's rare that we play co-op games together as well.
No, like I say,
Generally tend to play single player games.
It was primarily for me.
Apart
from when we played Rocket League the other day when you were absolutely mortal drunk.
That was New Year's morning. I drank, I think, about 2/3 to 3/4 of a litre of rum. Like a full bottle of rum, basically. I was off my box.
I had 4 beers and I wasn't playing my best. You drank a bottle of rum and I wasn't even sure whose side you were on at some point. That's why I switched it from 2v2 to 4v4.
Yeah, you need
I thought at least I could have like 2 semi-competent teammates.
I just drove around in circles around the goal and occasionally the ball bounced off us.
My favourite bit was where you just put in the message board, "Oh, I'm off for a piss," and then next thing I know, like a minute later, you got kicked from the game and left it 3v4.
I needed a piss. Yeah, so I'm trying to think.
Well, I think that the last thing to talk about in the Steam Christmas sales, if we've been through every game we bought and whether or not we recommend it or not, is the security issues that Steam had over Christmas.
Yeah.
And the fucking meltdown that ensued on social media and the Steam forums.
Well, if you weren't aware of this, what people found on, was it the 2nd? Or was it even New Year's Eve?
Yeah, you know what? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was either the end of December or beginning of January in any event. It was only a few days ago.
Was it not Christmas Day?
No, I don't think. It might Boxing Day, maybe. In any event.
At some point,
sometime between Christmas and the New Year, people were logging into Steam and seeing the details of other people. So you would log in. It wasn't like, oh, here's somebody else's like bank details or what have you. It was just you're logging into Steam and Steam thinks you're somebody else entirely.
So it's effectively presenting you with somebody else's account.
Yeah, or
their
putting in a
history,
different language.
Their email address was visible.
The billing address. And you know what? It's like originally when this happened, you can imagine a bunch of sort of minor league hacking groups took to social media and said, oh, we did this, this is us. And then they were quickly debunked, and that turned out not to be true. What Steam then said in the sort of the following days, about 3 or 4 days later, they eventually put out a statement and said it's a caching issue. So the idea of a caching issue is that basically Steam kind of picks all of your information up, and it's almost like client side. It can put the right information in front of you to tell you that you're you. Rather than somebody else, and basically Steam got confused with that, and so your information, if you clicked on something and had seen it on Steam and you were one of the users affected, and we're talking I think 34,000 people, Steam said, meant that if you were one of those 34,000 people, somebody else could come along to Steam who's also affected and see whatever you've been looking at on Steam. Now that might just be a store page, that might be profile, but they can access it like you could see it.
It was hacking related.
Yeah.
It wasn't. The hackers didn't hack it so other people were logging into other people's
No, they
accounts.
reckon that this caching error occurred because of a potential DDoS attack.
Yeah, it was a denial of service attack, and that caused their servers to be overloaded, and their caching solution failed.
Yeah. So it is hacking related, but to claim credit that you caused it, I think, is a bit rich from like a hacking perspective, because all you've done is done a DDoS, and that, you know but people it sounds terrible. That's not a particularly tricky thing to do.
Yeah.
It's just a dickish thing to do, really.
And people were going mental because people were working with the assumption that if people could get into their account, they could buy things
stuff,
on their account. But I think what Valve said was that no, it's visual only. You're not actually logged into somebody's account. You're just seeing the cached page that is associated with their account. And I can see why people were worried. I don't think Valve handled it. It was Christmas Day because Valve didn't release any statement.
Yes,
I couldn't help but think I feel fucking sorry for them, because there's people getting dragged into work on Christmas Day.
It's true, but then
these guys saying we wanted to raise it as a security issue to show that Steam security wasn't foolproof.
I think,
well, fucking do it on a work day, you dickhead.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, if people can see my address online, that's not a good thing. Like, I wasn't affected by this. I did make sure that I logged out. And I also made sure that the first thing that I did when everything was up and working again was tell Steam not to remember any of my bank details, because I don't want it remembering that. I'll go to the hassle of having to input stuff in, which, to be honest, will cost Steam stuff, because it means I'm not going to be impulse purchasing anything anymore, because with one-click ordering, it's very easy on Steam to just buy something and put it into your library. I'll not be doing that anymore because I've disassociated my account details with Steam. I don't want it remembering my bank details. Also, I'm sorry if somebody gets access to my address and, for whatever instance, my billing address, they can actually see my address online. I don't like that. You couldn't do that with Facebook, you couldn't do that with Twitter, you couldn't do that with social media. Yes, you could do that with Amazon or eBay, but you know what? It's not acceptable to me for that to occur and then Steam not to even say anything. And I know it's Christmas Day, I know the people who are responsible for the security and all the rest of it.
I said they didn't handle it well. I got distracted and said I felt sorry for them, and I did feel sorry for the fact that they had to get dragged into work. But they should have made a statement. They really should have.
This was the thing that pissed us off.
At least to say, because it did look like people were in your account, at least to say, don't worry, they can't actually order anything.
Yeah, they can sit. Yeah, that's what we needed. We needed it to be, this is what they can do, this is what they can't. They can see your information, and some guidance as well. Don't go and click on these fucking screens. Instead, it had to be Twitter, and it was Steam Database,
which is an unofficial.
Which is just one guy who collects usage statistics off Steam. He was the guy that was updating people, and you think, you know what? The other thing that I've heard as well from Steam is that their support section, they're actually now giving out a voucher to American users. If you'll get a $2 voucher in your Steam account if you set up two-stage verification on Steam. So if
we get something, but
but you'll get like a small voucher if you just literally Valve have sat down and worked out, you know what, it's cheaper just to give everybody who does this $2 than it is to hire more support for people to call in and say my account's been hacked, and actually say, you know what, just send it across to my phone, send us a passcode, which just seems absolutely crazy, you know. But that tells you, to me anyway, and don't get us wrong, I'm shitting on it, but I do like Steam as a service. I like the UI. I know people have got issues with it, and I know the support's not great, and I've only had to deal with them ever twice, and both times they've been absolutely fine and resolved my problems quickly. But I know from talking to people that people do have problems with them. But for me, it's the lack of communication, and that little anecdote there about, just set up two-stage verification will give you something to do that rather than us having to worry about taking care of anything. That's not a great way to deliver any kind of service. Like that.
The two-stage verification is not something that has come out as a result of this. The encouragement for 2 days.
Yeah, it's been there for a while.
And Google do that, and I think Google offer a good service, a fairly secure service. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that they're saying we'll do that because we're not going to put any other measures in. I feel like I'm being a Steam apologist here. I do like the Steam service. I'm obviously not as pissed off as you about it. I've still got my details on there, although I tend to pay for things through PayPal. But it wasn't great. It was handled badly. There's no doubt about that.
It's more than anything else, it's the lack of communication. And it's the lack of communication where, if that happened with another big notable website, you'd be getting emailed out the arse, to the point where you'd probably be getting annoyed with the amount of service updates you were getting to say this is what's going on, this is what we're doing to put it right.
But at least you'd know you were safe.
Exactly. Or, even if I'm not safe, tell us that you're doing something about it, tell us that you're fucking aware of this, because Steam didn't say shit.
Tell me if there's anything I can do.
Yeah, exactly. Give me, as a consumer, some guidance about what I need to do to keep myself safe, and tell us what you're doing as a service that's holding on to things like my address and my banking details. What are you doing to make sure that nobody else can get access to this? How are you going to put this right? And Steam didn't really do that. They did put out an apology, but actually the apology letter, if you read
it... Too little too late, though.
And it doesn't really read much like an apology letter. It just basically sets out and says, this is what happened. Rather than, we're really sorry, this is what we'll do to make sure that people don't get access to your information again, or this is what you can do about it. Just said, it happened. It's like, yeah, we know it happened, because we were all here talking about it. Yeah. You weren't, but we were, so... And you know what, like... It did just that, and that did piss us off. I came to it fairly late. It was about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock Christmas Day. We'd had some dinner. We didn't eat Christmas dinner until 7:30. We'd been out visiting family, and then we had a nice leisurely afternoon just cooking my dinner.
Me, I'd been sitting and bloody browsing Steam for hours after the shit kicked off, because they took the store down eventually, but it took them a long time to take the store down. So by the time I found out about it, I'd been browsing for hours, and this shit had already been underway.
Aye.
So I potentially could have exposed myself. Wouldn't be the first time. Lols.
That's why I'm a register. But I mean, it's more than anything else. It was just, and I keep coming back to the point, it was the way it was handled just stunk. It really just doesn't make you feel very warm and fuzzy as a consumer using a service where it's like, they don't give a shit about you. And don't get us wrong, I know most big business don't give a shit about customers.
Well, why don't you transfer all your business to Origin instead?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, that would work, because Origin, of course, are far, far better with their customer service than Steam. Or Ubisoft. I'll just go to Ubisoft and play exclusively Ubisoft games. All the Assassin's Creeds in the world, one after the other, on a service where, if you want to play multiplayer, you're fucked.
Well, I got Assassin's Creed 4 through the Uplay store. I don't know if you know about that, but there were major issues with the Assassin's Creed 4 campaign.
Is Assassin's Creed 4 as in...
Body one, Black Flag.
Oh, right, yes.
Great game, but I progressed to one point in the campaign where you start a mission and it immediately crashes. And it fucking helps that it auto-saves before then. No manual saves, none of that shit. Oh no. So every time I loaded my game up, it started on that mission and it crashed. And it took them about 4 months to actually patch that crash.
By which point you've moved on, you're forgetting about it.
I picked the game up. I couldn't remember what had gone on in the plot. I couldn't remember what the controls were. I just thought, yeah, fuck it.
Aye, that's it. I've lost
that's it.
any kind of investment in this.
I'm out. Which is a shame, because it was a great game up until that point. So yeah.
That's annoying.
Fuck Ubisoft, at least on PC.
So, I'm not sure I've got anything else to talk about, but I don't think we should just end this podcast mid-drive. We should at least talk until you get to where you're going.
Why don't you talk about Fallout? Because you were telling me you were pissed off with it.
Was it?
Yeah, Fallout 4.
Yes.
No, we can't do that because it relates to sort of spoilers, doesn't it?
Yeah, okay. This portion, I'll not go into spoilers. I'll try and keep this spoiler free, but if you're very sensitive and you haven't played Fallout 4 yet, probably best to stop listening to this. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Are they gone?
We'll give them another minute.
Hit those dicks.
Just look, if you're going to leave, just fuck off.
Yeah, why are you still here? Why are you still listening? Anyway, no, right, okay then. So, I'm not going to go into spoilers, I'm not going to give away sort of main plot.
Actually, you know what, there's a lot left on this drive, Gonzo.
That's alright.
And we've just told most of our audience to leave. Do you reckon you can spin out Fallout 4 for 3 hours of game time?
Yeah, of course, aye. So, Fallout 4, first of all, I will, quite happily put my hands up and say, you know what, I'm really enjoying it. I know a lot of purists, or a lot of people who thought it was going to be Fallout 3 of New Vegas, are upset with it, saying that it's more of a shooter with RPG elements than an RPG with shooting elements. And I can see that, but for me, I think what people are overlooking is the fact that actually, you know what, that engine that they're using for Fallout now is working quite nicely. Mm-hmm. Because I've still got my perks, I've still got my character, I've still got my special stats, and yeah, okay, some would argue that it's dumbed down, or that it's streamlined, or whatever you want to call it in terms of making it more accessible. Why do people think that things being accessible is a bad thing, providing that the content is still there and the quality's still there? And for me, it delivers that in spades. It's a very, very good game. Well put together. I like the Boston universe that you're based in. I think, for me, what pissed me off and what's let it down for me is I think it's the overall sort of main story. And I'm not going to specific points for it, but
specifically, it's the interaction between the different factions, isn't it?
For me, personally, playing it, and I know that I'm very, very close, like 1-2 missions off the very end of the game, which I'm still trying to trigger, but I'll get to that in a couple of minutes. What really gets us is the fact that actually I feel as though this world is very rich, and all these factions all doing their bits and pieces. I don't feel as though I've got any influence about that, or that I'm a part of it. When I'm playing it, I'm very aware, and I've always kind of played Fallout to this kind of extent, really, but I feel as though it's more like I'm farming content. It's very good for exploration. It's very good for going out there, finding little bits and pieces. You go to a disused building, you go in there, you find out what's happening. You go to somebody else's vault, you stumble across a vault, you go down, you find out what was going on at that vault and what happened to it. There's less of those in Fallout 4, from what I can see, than there is in Fallout 3 or even in New Vegas. I think, again, minor spoiler, but I think I've only found 3 vaults apart from yours.
I found
maybe 4.
2, one of which you come across quite early on in the course of things.
But yeah, and you know what, that was a bit of a disappointment too, was because that was one of my favourite parts of 3 in New Vegas.
There were always some of the more interesting elements.
Really, yeah, rich in story.
Yeah, when you find a vault, you don't just find a location to scout through, you find the archives,
It's a story,
the history.
yeah.
There's always the idea behind what that vault was set up to do, what the experiment was, what was unusual about it.
And there is still a lot of that in Fallout 4. I just feel as though
there's a train. I've never seen a train before in this game.
Got very excited, and you also turn into Donald Stott. But yeah, I think there's definitely less of it. What's there is really good. I just wish there was a bit more of it. And you know what? It's rare that I would just come out and say it, but like I really can't wait to see some DLCs or a couple of expansions for Fallout 4.
I'm ready for the DLC.
I'm well up for it. Because
I'm like 180 hours into the game now, and I've put it down because I feel like I'm just going to a place and clearing it out, and then selling the stuff or scrapping the stuff.
I'm about there, and
I've
got about 110 hours in, something like that, maybe a bit more. And don't get us wrong, I'm still enjoying it, but it is just it's doing that. It's farming for content. I go somewhere to see if there's a story, to wipe everybody out, of which it's always going to be raiders or super mutants. For some reasons, I'm finding fighting super mutants in this more of a chore than something that I'm enjoying.
They're not as tough as they used to be.
Yeah, they're
and
just
when
annoying.
I first encountered a super mutant in Fallout 4, I sort of bricked my pants because they were always quite tough enemies. Like in Fallout 3, it would be a little way into it before you started going through DC and fighting the mutants, at least on your own.
Yeah.
In the early stages, if you push the main quest early, you'd end up fighting them alongside the Brotherhood of Steel. But then in Fallout 4, the low-level super mutants are no more of a threat than the low-level raiders.
Yeah.
So it makes you feel like they're just meat to chew your way through.
And it's meat that spews out the same 5 or 6 really annoying lines again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not playing this as a particularly stealthy character. All games like that, from Oblivion to Skyrim to the previous Fallouts, I've always played as like a sort of a sneaky badass. I always play them like an assassin type. Like my character in Oblivion that shaped all of this was a Dark Elf assassin. So somebody that could handle himself in a fight, but generally was somebody that would tend to sneak and backstab. I'm not playing that way in Fallout, and I wish I was, because if I hear once more a super mutant making his mouth go because he can hear me on the floor below him, scampering around, if I hear one of those 3 or 4 lines that they keep saying every time, that just drives us crazy.
And I found that I've got the same problem. I found that the dialogue sometimes was quite hard to hear in the conversations. So I've got the dialogue turned right up.
Yeah.
So when I'm sneaking around, the person on the floor above me sounds like he's right next to me. And he's chewing out those same lines over and over and over again.
I tend to play it with subtitles. Well, every game I play with subtitles on, if I can put them on. It's very rare I would turn them off by choice.
I turn them off by choice because otherwise I read ahead.
No, but I quite like that. And again, my hearing isn't particularly great either. Shut up. But that's not my main gripe, though. Don't get us wrong. I've got minor gripes with it, but overall, I do love the game. What's really annoying is those.
You'll have to love the game. You put over 100 hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't get us wrong.
That with most
yeah, games. And that's the thing that gets is you see reviews for some games on Steam where somebody puts 300 hours in and goes, "Shit, waste of time, waste of money." You put 300 hours into this,
I see one on the Steam forum, and it was for Fallout 4, and it was a guy going, "Oh, it's crap. It's not a patch on Fallout 3. It's not a patch on Fallout New Vegas. I'm going to ask Steam for a refund." And somebody commented you've got 80 hours in this game. Yeah. You're telling me you've not had your money's worth.
Yeah.
I appreciate you might not like it as much, but if it was shit,
you
would have stopped after a couple.
You have paid 50 pence a minute, or 50 pence an hour of entertainment.
And good luck having Steam put that claim through.
Yeah. So, the getting to the sort of the main issue that I have, though, is just the story. As I said, I don't feel as though I'm impacting on that world, and I don't feel as though my character really plays a part in it. The main issue that I've got is, and I understand why they've done them. To some extent, I really enjoy the settlement building, and I've got a feeling that the DLCs will make a bigger play for that.
I can only think that because I really enjoy the settlement building, but it doesn't seem to serve a purpose in and of itself.
No, it's just literally just making people happy and providing services for them. And if you're waiting for one of the main factions that you come across very early, you can understand why you're doing that. But again, it's like, what's the point in this? So I know that's something that you mentioned, and it's something that has occurred to us already. You're going to see a train go by again. You'll be happy about that.
I'm very happy.
I wonder if it'll come from the left or the right. There you are, Cargo Rail.
It's just a blatant advertisement for Train Simulator.
Just gotta stop. Just let it go by. That was nice. So yeah, the settlement building, I'm definitely with you on that one. You raised that point initially, and as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, you know what, that's like a piece of the puzzle falling into place. Like, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. That is going to be an integral part of maybe some future DLC, or even just DLC that gives you maybe a bigger space and a lot more stuff to build, or a lot more freedom about how you go about building stuff, or what you're building.
Something that makes the pieces snap together a bit easier would be fucking good.
That'd be nice as well.
You got those junk fences are worse than useless because you have to leave a massive gap between the two pieces.
Yeah. So yeah, I can imagine that could be something that would be quite useful. But yeah, settlement building aside, for me it's the main quest. I'm to a point now where, as I said, I know that I've got basically to a point where I'm going to have to make some decisions about how the game's going to play out. Like previous Fallouts, it's not a spoiler and not going to go into specifics, but there's different factions, and clearly you're going to be put to the point where you're going to have to choose some factions or a faction over others. The problem is, because I play these games content farming, I don't piss anybody off because I want to see their quests, I want to get their loot, I want to see what they've got to say and how their individual story arcs all play out. So I'm at a point now where I'm right towards the end of the game, and at the worst I'm kind of neutral with people, other people I'm friendly with. And so it's now to the point where basically I'm going to have to go and piss off one of those other factions, not through any kind of quest. I'm just at a point where all the quests that I'm offered are procedurally generated, just as filler. You know, basically the stuff that'll keep the game ticking over when the game ends, just to keep you playing. Which is fine, I don't mind that stuff, but there's only so many times I can do some of these 2 or 3 different kinds of mission types. And it's at the point now where I am basically going to have to go and piss one of these factions off, and I know which faction I want to piss off, but the faction I want to piss off, you very rarely see them.
Now you've told me your problem, and there are ways of progressing without pissing that faction off, but not the way that you want to do it.
Yeah.
The problem is there's a couple of routes that you can go down, and there's 4 major factions. There's one faction in particular that the only way you can progress their mission forward is if you're already disliked by one of the other factions. Mm-hmm. And the only way to get disliked by them is basically to walk into their headquarters and start a shooting
Well, this
spree,
is at the point, that's what I was going to say.
Not a reasonable RP action,
like,
is it?
Like exactly the same as you, I play these games and I tend to roleplay a character because I'm from a pen and paper role-playing tabletop wargaming background. That's what we did as kids, and so when I play these games I like to sort of come up with a character concept and play that character out, making decisions that maybe I wouldn't personally want to make, and maybe getting results that I wouldn't want to see as a person. Certainly on the first way I'll play through something. Fallout, for the next time I play it, which I'm bound to at some point, and I scrub and I start with a new character, generally I tend to play it generally as a nice guy as my first character, but I'll always say, well, you know what, some of those decisions that I could have made, I'll play as an arsehole. You can't really do that in Fallout. Fallout, you can be a nice guy, or you can be a bit of a dick, but there's no...
be a genocidal maniac.
Yeah, there's no kind of like, you're terrifying the entire wasteland because of your reputation for being an absolute nutter, which is a bit of a shame because I like those differences. But yeah, it's to the point now, as you said, I'm going to have to go to one of those faction HQs and I'm just going to have to mow them all down. And I've set my character up to be quite a nice guy, fairly neutral, but tries to do the right thing in his own way. And he's not the kind of person that would just turn up to another faction's HQ and mow them down just because reasons. Like, there is no reason to do that. So I'm kind of stuck in limbo. As a result, most of the time when I'm playing, I'm just going around exploring places and hoping beyond hope that I find some of the people that I dislike, and maybe getting into a fight with them. And at least then I can justify it in my head, like we're both squabbling for loot. There's some loot here that they want and I want, and at least then there's a reason why that conflict would happen. And then if the dislike is because of that, great, that's what I want. But it's not going to let us do that. I'm going to have to just turn up and blow them all away for no apparent reason. So, you know, it's basically...
It's a flaw in the writing.
What we've established is that Fallout 4 condones genocide. That's what I've established. To process
It
the progress
encourages
in this
it.
main class. Yeah, well, it does. It's encouraged. There's no way I can get the outcome for the game that I think that my character should have without committing genocide. And he's not a genocidal person, so it's basically that's what's happening.
And on that note,
On that merry note, we are done.
thank you for watching the Gonzo Ewok podcast.
Um,
I've been Ewok.
I've been Gonzo. Let us know what you think of this this new way of approaching it. It's certainly we've picked a game because
I
of
like to
control
think
issues, it
it's
caused a
kind-
bit of an issue. But
Yeah, but we've solved that. I like to think it's a bit of like a roaring fireplace kind of thing.
Aye.
You know, it's just like a screensaver almost that's going on.
we could do that. We could just record podcasts, and what we'll do is we'll punch up maybe like a royalty-free YouTube video of just a roaring fire. So it's just a nice bit of crap on in the
Did you not
background.
like Euro Truck Simulator?
It did the
Once
trick.
we got the control things out of the way, I thought it was quite chill to just drive along.
Hey, I enjoy doing it, and I think we're both keen to pick it up. But more importantly, we can sit here and talk about games and play games to our heart's content while we're not recording. So let us know if this is something that you enjoy and you'd like to see a bit more of. You can do that by hitting the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, or just drop me a comment either here on YouTube, or you can find us on Twitter at GonzoEwok, or search for facebook.com/GonzoEwok over there as well. That was pretty smooth for the new year.
It was
too
not bad. So
Anyway.
it's goodbye from me,
And it's goodbye from me.
and it's goodbye from Bad Santa.
And nearly the two Ronnies as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.